For round two of the Blancpain Endurance Series, we are at Silverstone this weekend, and free practice is about to get underway with a 62-car entry. We've had the bronze test, and very shortly we're going to start to see proper representative lap times when the cars venture out for free practice. They have free practice and pre-qualifying today. The three elements of qualifying come tomorrow morning. Ferrari and Lamborghini, the cars to beat last time out at Monza. We saw Lamborghini take the checkered flag first, although subsequently the car excluded, and so the BES has had its first ever Pro-Am outright winner. The track is dry, the weather is a little bit on the cool side. It's not quite as hot and sunny as we thought it was going to be, but at least it's dry, and the team's looking forward to some useful mileage in this next 90 minutes that we have for free practice. And you can see the weather information, the temperature 14.9 degrees. The sun that we had this morning, as I say, is now gone, but fingers crossed we are going to have a good dry weekend. Although there is a talk, in fact, of some rain tomorrow morning when we get to race day, and whether that's going to affect qualifying or the start of the race, we'll have to wait and see. But for today, the teams want to get on with putting some mileage in. Lots of new drivers to Silverstone, and the balance performance for a couple of cars has shuffled as well. So you have perhaps the Ferraris being not quite as competitive as they were on home soil, and one of the other key talking points is going to be whether Bentley can do back-to-back British wins, of course, because it was here last year that the Bentley scored its first outright win. The cars weren't as competitive as hoped at Monza, but this is a very different kind of circuit altogether. So 62 cars across the three classes, Pro, Pro-Am and the Am Cup. It's going to make for a very busy race indeed. It's the 3-hour format, the last of our 3-hour races until the final round of the championship, because after this we have 1,000 Ks at Paul Ricard and then the Blue Ribbon 24 hours at Spa. So Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit, and it is the heritage pits that are being used. So in other words, the pit lane is the traditional pits rather than being in front of the wing, but the lap itself is going to be of 5.890 kilometres, 18 turns in total, and the map you can see as it revolves, getting ready for this free practice session. The cars will be released very shortly onto the track, and when they do so, then we can start to have a look at the entry for the weekend and also look at the potential race winners. David Addison and John Watson with you for the purposes of this weekend's Blancpain Endurance Series race at Silverstone. And they're looking down from Stowe Corner down the Hanger Straight. That is the Silverstone wing for the Formula One pits, and the drivers will be charging past that midway round the lap, of course, rather than it being the end. Then they flick right through Abbey, left through Farm, and this is the end of the lap, coming through the stadium, Brooklands up to Luffield, and then round Woodcote Corner past the BRDC clubhouse and up towards the timing line, with, of course, the timing line being just on the exit of Woodcote. A standing start takes you much further down that pit straight. Now, at Monza, we saw how well the Ferraris went, and in the end it was a Ferrari that won after Renat Salikov and Norbert Siedler inherited the win after the exclusion of the Lamborghini Huracan. Well, that car from Pro-Am is not going to be in Pro-Am this weekend because it gains a third driver, and the good news is that it gains Marco Seefried, who is a very quick driver indeed. Marco was busy with a different sports car program that weekend, so couldn't race at Monza, but it's good to have him here. And the car in question, number 333, the Rinaldi Racing run Ferrari, will be well worth watching this year. Remember, of course, as well, that the Blancpain Endurance Series merges with the Sprint Series for the overall points in the Blancpain GT Series, and so Robin Frins, Laurens Vanthoor are the leaders there, ahead of Stefan Ortelli, then Norbert Siedler with Stefan Rochelmi, Maxime Martin and Dirk Müller. Next, they of course had their win in the sprint race at Nogaro, then it's Salikov, Abreu, and the rest with points being gained, as I say, across the two championships. A number of drivers do both, although some content themselves with just one or the other. So it's going to be busy this session, that is for sure. The teams will be wanting to cycle through everybody. And so as soon as we get the green light on at the end of the pit lane, we'll be good to go. The Emil Frey Jaguar you can see there, and the green lights are on at the pit lane, and we are now ready to go. So the session is live, 90 minutes in prospect. I don't expect necessarily the people to be going for gun times here. We are going to be able to get people through on perhaps old tyres as well, used tyres. So it may be that we don't see people on new rubber until pre-qualifying, just to scrub them in. So getting a handle on a proper lap time is this session is going to be perhaps less easy, given, as I say, they may well be out for the duration on old tyres. Right, time to say good morning, Watty, and looking forward to a good weekend.
Well, what can I say? Silverstone. I mean, I've never seen as many cars on the racetrack, even on days when we were doing the sort of the Silverstone motor show,
yes.
when every manufacturer in the world was here displaying their goods to potential customers, and I feel I just walked back into what is a motor show for the world's finest GT cars.
But it's an amazing sight, isn't it? I mean, however hard you look, you keep missing them because they're 60 plus.
The amazing sight is from us in the commentary booth. Best position in the house is actually where we are, looking at the cars coming out of Luffield, through Woodcote, past what would have been the memorable start-finish straight. For all competitors, it's got to be, I don't know, I mean, let's put it this way, testing.
Yes.
Because the nature of Silverstone, the natural flow of the very quick parts of the circuit, here we are just coming down now to what is the revised Stowe. We're familiar with this double apex rather than the single apex of the Stowe corner that's so well known to race fans around the world. I don't know how it's going to work out. It's going to be very, I think, frustrating for the pro drivers particularly, who are going to be on the racing line and expecting the AMs to use the mirrors, which they did pay for when they bought their lovely Ferraris and whatever else they may be driving. In fact, you can get an extra large interior mirror, and I think those cars mandatorily should have those mirrors fitted, because that is going to be the key issue here, is how are you going to manage the traffic?
And you're going to be catching the back markers within a handful of laps come race day.
And on top of that, on Sunday, looking at my local weather, or TV South, BBC South, they reckon there's a big band of rain coming from the northwest to the southeast, and Silverstone looks to be right in the heart. Now, whether the weather forecast has changed or whether that's an accurate one, and I can't believe it. I mean, that is the winningest Audi this season, Lawrence Van Thor. I don't know who's behind the wheel at the minute. Well, it is Van Thor, in fact. So Lawrence, I mean, I can tell you something. The reason why he probably spun is not only did he take part in the 24-hour race at Nürburgring last weekend, which he won, he then went straight to Spa-Francorchamps to do 2 days testing in an LMP2 car, and then on the Wednesday he went to, Thursday, he went to Manicourt for a further day's testing in a Morgan Oak LMP. You know all these things. And I mean, actually, he said, I'm actually physically and mentally tired. There's an example of what can happen when you're both physically and mentally tired.
And of course, he is one of the stars in that car, so a lot of pressure rests on his shoulders.
No. He is the star.
But not if he does things like that. But he's got it out of his system, and we hardly noticed, did we? So now he can crack on and work his way through traffic. So 62 cars we start with. Will we get 62 through qualifying tomorrow morning? We'll have to wait and see. This 90-minute session, a chance for them to work on setup of car, start to get drivers cycle through, work their way through whatever programs all the teams want. It's not just about lap times. Vantor is on his toes, though, isn't he? Working his way through traffic at the end of Vale.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, first time the cars have been at a race meeting since Monza, the opening round of the Blancpain Endurance Series, and there we saw something which was almost unique, and that was a Pro-Am car winning a 3-hour endurance race. Okay, albeit that the Lamborghini was excluded for a technical infringement. But what was interesting at Monza was the out-and-out speed of the Ferraris, especially the top speed. And of course, Monza is a circuit where top speed is key. At Silverstone, more towards the handling and the downforce, lots of fast corners, especially at the first corner after the start-finish straight here, Copse, then Beckett's, then all the way down to Stowe. And the first time you get a really big break, maybe you'll have one on the GT car, but it is actually coming down into Vale. And then you've got a series of slow corners, culminating, coming back onto the start-finish straight, flat out through Woodcote corner. So it is more downforce orientated than Monza, which is straight line speed. But just to give the Ferrari owners a little clip behind the ear for being so rude and just illustrating their straight line performance, I mean, in a manner which really was not hospitable, considering you're at the home circuit of Ferrari. They've been given a little bit of a BOP adjustment. So a little bit of extra weight, 30 kilograms on general. Maybe the ride height being raised slightly just to take away a little bit of the aero. And of course all of that will have some bearing on the overall lap time, but certainly maybe in the straight line performance, because coming through here, Beckers is an example, they won't be able to carry the speed they would have done with the kind of ride height and weight setup that they had at Monza. Have I got all that off my chest now?
I think you have, and it was beautifully put, John. So now we know exactly why the Ferrari's drivers are moaning already that it's not fair. You know, we've had our speed clipped. Well, serves you right.
They have had their weekend in the sun.
Indeed.
They had it at Monza. Now let's get on and see. Now there's the car that really is one of the quickest of the Ferraris out there. That's quick on pace, not just on straight line speed.
Now this is the car of Norbert Siedler, Renat Salikov, and tomorrow it will have Marco Seefried in it. He's otherwise engaged today, but you're on board at the moment, and this is the car that won Pro-Am and then inherited the win outright. I was told that Marco Seefried wouldn't be here until tomorrow. Told now he's behind the wheel of the car. So anyway, we'll ride with him, and this, John, is onto Wellington Straight.
Yes, and you're coming down now what is almost the quickest part of the racetrack. It used to be Hanger Straight, but depending a little bit on the wind, and right now the wind is somewhat benign, I would say. Then down into Brooklands, just outside the steps, or the gate of the British Racing Drivers Club. The owners of the and the Mercedes is looped in Luffield, so that was a little moment for Siegfried to think about. Now flat out through Woodcote, still a challenging corner in a GT car, even with the downforce that they have. You're exiting around about 140 miles an hour. There is the Mercedes, and that was, I mean, we've just seen Laurent Van Voort getting caught out, so first time out, early laps, getting caught out probably on slightly colder tyres than was anticipated.
Sean Johnston, the American, was the spinner in the Mercedes.
Had to be, didn't it?
Now look at this for traffic. I think Seefried has bailed from this lap, hasn't he?
I mean, are you surprised? I mean, we've got another event going on in the Principality down on the Mediterranean shores, and they'll talk about, oh, my lap was compromised by traffic. Sunshine, get your up here and do a proper race, and after 3 hours give me a moan about traffic.
I can't argue with the logic, John, absolutely. So there's lots of runoff area here. Hopefully they won't need it too much. Marco Seefried is back on his toes now, trying to hustle his way down through Vale. What's that moving around inside the car?
There is something. I noticed it went from right to left. It looks like it's a seatbelt or some attachment. I mean, the G-forces are throwing it from one side to the other. It's hard just to give a clear indication, but you can see it's now beginning to frustrate Siegfried as he comes down what is Grand Prix start, finish pits, then through Abbey, very quick indeed. Then there's a little nasty dip in the middle of Abbey which can catch you out, then into this complex village.
Up to the loop.
Yeah, there's a whole variety of options, and I don't know yet what is the, I mean, not maybe in an ultimate out-and-out single qualifying lap, then through flat out onto the Wellington Straight. That little part of the racetrack still, I think, has got so many variations and options, especially in a race where you can make up time and make up positions.
So now down into the stadium through Brooklands. Burst of acceleration, lift, up into Luffield, long right that loops. Now Seefried is being frustrated by whatever that is moving around inside the car. Does he pit? No, he's going to carry on. He's a pro driver, so he'll work round it.
I just hope it's not a travelling mechanic. I know that we've had the legendary Mille Miglia retro run the weekend before last, and I just hope some mechanic hasn't thought that's the future of motorsport, riding mechanic.
It's a thought, isn't it? It's a thought. Now, what have we got as the quickest car at the moment in the session? It is Franck Pereira in his BMW, switching from Porsche to BMW for this year.
Nearly caught me out there. I was going to say Porsche, but obviously BMW is 202.771, third flying lap, or third lap altogether. But it is Siegfried in the Ferrari, who we were riding on board with a moment ago, who set that fast third sector time. But let's go on and have a look and see what little Winky, Marcus Winkelhock, lights flashing, coming down into Brooklands.
This is the one that's second fastest. Marcus Winkelhock at the wheel of the Phoenix Run Audi. This is the new RM8 LMS Ultra.
It won a Nürburgring.
Indeed.
It wasn't this particular car, but it was one of the G2, the Generation 2. So already WRT and Audi, you know, how frustrating must that be for the competition that they're running an existing car, which is a race-winning car, the G1. They've produced, or Audi have produced the G2. Already that's won a 24-hour race. And you know, you'd like to think that might take a bit longer to get it sorted out, but that's the pace of development in motorsport.
WRT not running its second generation car this weekend, but we do have this example from Phoenix. We've got car 53 already under investigation, the Perezzini Ciocci Potolicchio Ferrari for overtaking under a yellow flag. And we've only had about 11 minutes, it's all happening already.
Well, of course, there were yellow flags up at Luffield. We had, first of all, Lawrence Van Voort spinning in the Audi, then we had the Mercedes, so I think those are the only two we have been aware of. Yellow flag still out somewhere around the racetrack. Can't quite work out where that is, whether it's a general yellow flag or whether it's a local one. But just trying to look down to a marshal's post just on the exit of Luffield, not seeing any yellow flags being shown.
No, nothing apparent on our side of the circuit. So past the wing goes Marcus Winkelhock, who is second fastest in the Audi. And there is one of the Nissans that will go very well around here. 23 is the car from the Pro Cup. This is the Alex Buncombe car. Yeah,
this is a car, I think we keep saying the Nissan has got all the promise, but they're feeling quite confident because they had fundamentally a good run in Monza, as did the Sean Walkinshaw car. They had some issues with their pit stops. They're trying to get on top of all that. But this circuit will suit the Nissan because of the nature, again, of the layout, the faster corners. You can get the car in, and rather than having the sort of heavy braking, slow, sharp, left-right chicanes of Monza, I think this is going to play to their strengths, and that's what they believe too.
And as we said at Monza, it's encouraging that Nissan for this year has put an all-Pro Cup driver lineup together. Katsumasa Chiyo, Wolfgang Reip and Alex Buncombe, the drivers. We know how well Alex Buncombe has gone in the past when paired with AMS, less experienced PlayStation graduates, but an all-Pro Cup car is very good indeed, run by Bob Neville's team. Vastly experienced is Bob. Down the pit lane it comes. Jan Mardenborough, incidentally, in the entry this weekend in the Pro-Am class entry, which is good to have him in the championship again.
Yes, I mean a young man who's undoubtedly got a future mapped out for him, where he will move on.
A Porsche just heads down the pit lane.
I noticed it. It's very nice to see a Porsche competing here in a Blancpain event. I think we probably would benefit from many more, but until entrants decide to go down that route. Oh, there's a Porsche, 56. Did you see that? There are two Porsche here this morning.
On screen, Mercedes. 99 is the Nico Bastian, Steph Dusseldorf, Klaus Graf, Rover Racing. Mercedes heading up now towards Village. And we know the Mercedes are good. There's no Ben Schneider this weekend, sadly. He was entered, but has stood down from the Pro-Am car. So heading on to Wellington Straight. You can see the different brands that we have. So Mercedes, Ferrari, Audi all running there. And down towards Brooklands is 18, the Black Falcon around Mercedes. That's the Oliver Morley, Sean Johnston, Mario Engel car. That had its spin, of course, early on, didn't it? Sean Johnston at the wheel. Johnston, who has this programme and Carrera Cup Deutschland, so there's quite a lot of racing. Heads up towards the timing line. So that's the run out of Woodcote. Speed building, John, down towards Copse.
Yeah, I mean, you're coming into Copse 145, possibly as high as 150 miles per hour, stay in the old imperial measure. And of course, Copse still a massive challenge. In a high downforce single-seater car, it's a massively quick corner. Nevertheless, in a GT car, it's probably down a couple of gears, a little touch on the brakes, and then get it hooked up onto the apex. The apex at Copse is actually difficult to see because you have to anticipate it. If you wait until you see it, you're going to miss it.
Right.
And then before you know it, you're into the sequence of corners at Beckett's, which are absolutely mind-blowingly fast, but thrilling to drive. And again, it's the ability to carry the speed all the way through, principally on the exit of the third of the Beckett's corners, because then you're onto Hanger Straight, the second, or depending on the wind direction, the quickest part of this Grand Prix circuit at Silverstone. Then down into Vale, probably the slowest corner on the circuit, then double apex Stowe corner. The key to Stowe corner is to make it actually, although it's two apexes, to try and make it as flowing as possible, not sort of turn the wheel like a threepenny bit, as we say, a Ferrari off track.
That's the Martin Jensen, Dennis Anderson car, and there's an Audi off as well.
Well, there was that contact between the two cars, or?
Sure. Gosselin, Rostow, Lanier is the Audi combination. That's at the end of Vale, isn't it?
Yeah.
Who was behind the wheel of 37? He says hunting for a driver.
FRV. Well, that's 37th place. We haven't got it on the timing and scoring it, have we?
37 was Mark Rostow, yes, 48 fastest. Mark Rostow's an experienced driver, but has been caught out at the end of Vale. And the red flag is being shown on the timing screens.
Yes, we are. So that's the session going to come to a standstill, so I suspect remove the Audi.
Yeah. Which is interesting because, of course, at Monza we saw lots of use of the full course yellow, which you would have thought would have been the way to do that.
It could be. Maybe there's nobody here to drive the full course yellow car.
Maybe. So the session is stopped and the clock will tick away, of course, with this being a free practice session.
But again, it's time lost, and with most driver car combinations running 3 drivers, you want to give all an opportunity, because you don't get that many opportunities to drive on Silverstone's Grand Prix circuit, and especially if you're from the Pro-Am or the Am division, there's a lot to be gained from just mileage around the racetrack.
So 37 stopped on track as we saw Mark Rostam. That's the reason for the stoppage. The car needs moving out of the way. Shouldn't really be too difficult. The Jaguar has stopped as well. That perhaps was the yellow flag that we had initially.
Yeah, we didn't see the reason.
For, yeah.
So the Bruno Frey, the Frey Jaguar on the back of the truck, so it'll be delivered back into the garage. It's going to be, I'm afraid, a lot of this kind of stop-go through this session, as if that's what they're choosing to do, to pick up cars and clear the circuit. Certainly we didn't know where the Jaguar was stopped. We didn't see that. We saw, we think, looking at the, I recognise, see that property in the background? Yes, that's Beckett's Corner. I knew it from somewhere.
So the car is being retrieved. The other nice thing about Silverstone, of course, is there are lots of access roads, so it can be moved out of the way and brought back to the pit lane without having to drive around the circuit. But
unlike the commentators.
Indeed. The hardship we have. The hardships we have.
I miss the old bridge, just after start-finish straight. It was always the way you got in to the paddock. You used to come into the car park on the outside of the track, straight over the bridge. And I walk to the bridge, and it's just clear air.
The times they are a-changing. I feel ever so sorry for the Frey team with this Jaguar. They try hard, but it just seems to be beset by mechanical woes.
I think there's probably a lesson in that comment. And I think fundamentally, as much as I love to see a Jaguar racing, I've got a history with Jaguars and sports car racing Group C, I think you probably called it. And anybody who takes a project on, in effect, in a soulless, in other words, doing it themselves without the benefit of a factory backup or a number of other teams, it's a very difficult task.
Absolutely right. Yeah. There's the wing, which is on the exit of Club Corner.
And it's not living up to its name today either.
Rooted to the ground, look.
Yeah.
Perfect. Down the pit lane, one of the Hurricanes there. Look, the green Lamborghini heads down the pit lane. We've gone green, even as cars are coming into the pit lane. The problem is cured and we're back on track again. We're back running. This is how we are at the moment. Front Pereira quicker than Marcus Winkelhock, and then third is Laurens Vanthoor after his spin. Fourth fastest is Ryan Ratcliffe's BMW. Fifth fastest is Audi number 2, which is
Christopher Meese.
Christopher Meese, yeah. Do I mean that? No, James Nash, I think. James Nash it is number 2.
Screen, that's why the timing scoring screens are blurry, that's why it's hard to read.
And then 6th is 120 BMW, which is the Dominic Baumann, Maximilian Sandritter and Claudia Hurtgen car. Dominic Baumann at the wheel, but great to have Claudia Hurtgen in Blancpain. One of the best female racing drivers there has ever been, a very successful GT racer, and very, very close she came to winning the Monaco Formula 3 Grand Prix a long time ago. Former co-driver to Stefano Ortelli, if you go back 20 years to the days of racing Porsches.
Who does that age?
Probably me more than her, I fear. I was talking about the racing then. Right, we've gone green, we're back running. 70 minutes are still on the clock. As I said at the start of this, it's not just about times, it is about working on setup, and for many of the drivers new to Silverstone, getting them comfortable in the car, isn't it?
Yes, I mean, that to me is a major task. Well, we had a bronze session this morning for those drivers that are exclusively in that category, so they've had an additional an hour or so on track to just, and in some cases they've never been here. They might have done it on a PlayStation type thing, but the actual tarmac and what you see when you drive your race car as opposed to what you see when you do it on the screen are entirely different, and you don't get any sense of, for example, Silverstone doesn't have much gradient rise or fall, but actually if you come out of Stowe all the way down to Vale, it is actually going downhill.
It's true. Silverstone looks very different, of course, these days, not just in terms of this area where there is another start and finish line, but this next new sequence of corners. Is it still as big a challenge as ever it was, Silverstone?
Oh, I think it is. I think the challenges, obviously with the major event change, the introduction of the wing and then the change of Abbey Corner, the old Abbey which had gone left, which was no longer a challenge because it was simply just flat out in whatever you were driving. They then put the chicane in, but the historics actually used to use the old Abbey corner. They didn't use the chicane. So the big problem was getting the cars to go slow enough by the time they got to what then became Bridge Corner. And on it went, on it went. So there was a major judgment made to revise the layout of the circuit to incorporate something that might offer a little bit more overtaking opportunity. And I think through Village into the loop, that section does offer up. I mean, you do see a lot of pretty bad driving in conjunction with the opportunities. Nevertheless, the object was to try and create an interesting corner or sequence of corners. And then, of course, you've got Wellington Straight, which gives another great opportunity to pass down into Brooklands. And again, an area where if you get your positioning correct, you can take a punt down the outside and try and cut across, or you can be uber brave and go down the inside and sort of, eyeball it out.
Now you're looking at number 7 Bentley, that was the winning car last year. Well, that's a race etched in my memory because it was a great drive by all three. But Stephen Kane, of course, came through, took the lead in front of the BRDC clubhouse and gave Bentley its first win. The cars struggled at Monza, John, didn't they? But here, chances looking better.
Well, again, the sort of the strengths of the car. Even last year, the Bentley, Andy Merrick did a brilliant job in the Bentley in the opening stint in 2014. In 2015, I'm not entirely sure. I suspect there are reasons which the team will mumble under their microphones about. But the nature of Silverstone, the layout of this circuit will play very much to the strengths of the Bentley, as we did see here last year.
Being pursued by another great British brand. Look, you've got the Oman racing team Aston Martin pursuing it. That's the car of Ahmad Al-Harfi, Dan Lloyd and Johnny Adam.
That's a strong car.
It is, isn't it? That's another Pro Cup entry as well. And Johnny Adam, of course, is a Aston Martin factory driver these days. You've got Lawrence Vanthor behind, so three very competitive cars all running on the same bit of real estate here as out of Woodcote they come. Where is Bentley number 7? Has he done anything exciting in terms of a lap time as yet? 11th. Vanthor has gone top, incidentally, at the back of this little group. 2 minutes 2.189 now. So Lawrence Vanthor is the quickest. And Dan Lloyd, third in the Aston Martin. You can see how strongly he's going, but we talked about it being a strong car.
Yes,
there's evidence.
Absolutely, and of course now he's caught up to the tail of the Bentley, so that's going to... His momentum has gone. I mean, Stephen, that's not... Well, look at there, swings around. So that was the opportunity that Lloyd was looking for to get past the Bentley. Stephen Kane obliged by making an error on the exit of the three Beckett's and Laurent Vanthor, and the Audi slips down the inside as well. So unusual, Stephen Kane doesn't make too many mistakes, and that was an error just on the exit.
Silverstone instructor of years past, as well as being a very competitive racing driver, so a slight glitch there. But again, like Lawrence Vanthor early on in the session, get it out of your system now, don't have a moment in the race. The Bentley then 11th at the start of this lap. It won't be an improvement, of course. No,
I mean, all they can do is just continue the lap, conclude it, and now he goes on to a fresh lap. So that last lap was 2:03. Funnily enough, he only lost... Well, his best lap was 2:03.8, and that was his last lap, 2:03.8. Can't believe that. He couldn't have gone off and bumped over the outside of the track and still get your best lap.
Well, no, he's not got to the end of this lap yet, has he? Because that was coming onto the Hanger Straight at Chapel Curves. He's still got to get around the stadium yet. Then we'll get the lap time up on this next lap. So he's in the middle sector. We'll see how much time he lost when he comes over the timing line. There's the Akuriakos BMW, which is, of course, again from the Pro-Am class. Alistair McKay, Ollie Bryant, Devon Modell, the drivers.
Well, they're all the way down currently, I think, in 51st.
Yes.
Not that it really matters.
Alistair McKay got the wheel of it at the moment. And run by Mark Lemmer's Barwell team for Hugh McKaig's Akuriakos setup. 5 seconds Stephen Kane lost, incidentally, on that lap.
Sounds more like it.
Grassy moment, yeah. Right, the BM has backed off, hasn't it now? And a slippery surface flag out, I noticed, coming up towards Village.
Well, there's debris in the track at turn 13. So whatever that is, whether somebody's been off and dragged a whole load of gravel or...
Okay.
That's all I can imagine it is. This is the part of the track. Oh, you can see it, the Ferrari is standing around. That looks to me more like it's a fluid problem than it is gravel.
We hear that number 2, Philippe Gaillard, has been off the road. So it's his debris. And lots of people now being warned about track limits, the perennial problem of modern-day F1 circuits. I reckon that's Julian Westwood at the wheel of the Audi, don't you? Because he's really on his toes. Feisty, good word, yes. Yeah.
Jules,
very experienced driver.
Yeah, a young man, well, not a young man any longer, but somebody who, 12, 15 years ago would have been considered as a major name in motorsport.
Yes, won the Vectra Championship and was getting close to a touring car drive. Now, let's catch up on news from the pits and hear from Ricardo Sanchez, because he is there with OJ Borg.
Ricardo, talk me through how the GTR is feeling here at Silverstone.
Yeah, the car is amazing. It's the first time I'm cruising the 2015 GTR, so the car really feels really stable on the front. We have to work out the setup in the rear, especially in slow corners. It's really hard to get traction, but I mean, Silverstone suits very well for the car, so hopefully we will be in the podium or a good result next day tomorrow.
It wasn't the perfect weekend at Monza. You're hoping for a bit more luck this time.
Yeah, Monza was really frustrating for us, but I have confidence in the team. Especially we are running a new car today, so the 2015 GTR looks pretty strong, and hopefully it will be a better performance in this race.
And how much, when you've had that frustrating weekend like you had at Monza, how much does that really make you want to set it right when you come to the next round?
Yes, a racer is pretty tough because you prepare yourself so much time on the sim and working out in the gym. And then the only chance to shine was gone because we had mechanical failure. But this motorsports is part of the learning curve, and here we are back in Silverstone. Forget Monza, and there's a new chance for us to prove that we have talent and the GTR is really, really strong.
Ricardo, thank you very much. Adders, back to you.
Thanks, OJ. So free practice here at Silverstone continues. Round 2 of the Blancpain Endurance Series. You're looking at Jan Mardenborough in the Pro-Am Nissan, a car that was on track a week ago, less than a week ago, in the Nürburgring 24 Hours. Good to have Jan Mardenborough back into this series, and he brings the Bob Neville run car down the pit lane. And
it's still in the colours it ran at the Nürburgring. They didn't even have time to get it into its normal Blancpain Enduro colours.
I think it looks good like that.
Looks very stealthy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Of course, one of the troubles with a colour like this is, as Audi and WRT have found, is that in some circuits, depending on the colour of the tarmac, they blend into the background. So on those long shots that directors are so fond of giving us, it's difficult to identify. Instead of getting that really tight, where you can almost see the whites of the driver's eyes.
Now, are we going to have a driver change? Everybody wants to cycle through and get some mileage in if they can. This is the car that is Ricardo Sanchez, Gaetan Paloutou and Jan Mardenborough. Gaetan Paloutou, who they're standing ready to take over, was racing in the British Ginetta Series a couple of weeks ago to get more mileage. But I think Jan, the man, is going to stay behind the wheel. He's going to be the gun in that car, isn't he? But
very much so.
No, door opens, and he gets after all that. Quick word with Gaetan about how the track is.
The car feels good, the front feels good, it's just in the slow speed end.
Yeah, usual issue about the slower corners and the entry and then the throttle on and keeping the balance of the car. Not really. I think the key that they've got to think about is not spinning up the rear wheels on throttle, which is relatively easy to do, and by doing so you will shorten the life of the tyre.
Now this is the car that won on track at Monza, number 19, the Andrew Palmer, Fabio Mabini, Jeroen Mull Lamborghini Huracan, but it then had its win taken away from it provisionally because of a fuel rig infringement. It wasn't the car, it was the fuel rig that didn't have the right restrictor. Therefore the fuel went in quicker than it should, therefore the pit stops were quicker, therefore it had an advantage. And it does not look a bit skittish, John.
It looks very twitchy coming through, Abbey. I mean, I'm just watching the nose of the car, and it turns and darts, and you almost see the minute little corrections to keep the car from well, again, you can see in the lower speed stuff, not such a big problem, but again, the danger is by allowing yourself to enjoy that, you can do damage to the rear tyre and end up with a set of rear tyres that are more worn than you would like for the duration of your run. In this situation, practice not going to have much effect, but come tomorrow's 3-hour event, well, if it's going to be a dry event, you want to have as many good sets of tyres as possible.
Jeroen Mull is the man at the wheel of this car at the moment. It's run by Grasser Racing Team, but with some Lamborghini engineering support in there, a whole new program, and Lamborghini taking this very seriously indeed.
And it's gone essentially from being an external provider, which is Reiter, to being an in-house project, which is a combination of Lamborghini, but very much with the benefit of Audi. The two cars pretty much using the same underpinnings, certainly the same engine, and not most likely the same transmission.
Have a quick look at 32, which is Stuart Leonard's Aston Martin. and it's coming down through Vale. There is the Russian BMW, so to speak. It's another of the Barwell run cars, but this is Leon Machitsky, Timur Sardarov and Johnny Cocker, who's not quite so Russian.
I was going to say, has he changed nationality recently?
But it's entered as the Team Russia car. Johnny Cocker is the star in that. Very quick young driver.
Somebody who is familiar with the Silverstone layout, both National Grand Prix and even probably Stowe School Circuit. So he has got the benefit, and therefore probably will do the majority of the running to get a sort of car set up, and then hand it over to the lesser experienced and give them a little bit of time.
Indeed so. Stuart Leonard won't have spent too many laps around here, but his Aston Martin is going quite strongly. 9th fastest at the moment, in fact. Makes me wonder, with all due deference, whether it's him behind the wheel, because 32 is a car that also has Michael Meadows as one of the drivers, and a 9th quickest time kind of feels like Michael Meadows, but anyway, it's shown as Stuart Leonard. If I'm doing him a disservice, apologies. It's a good effort if he is in the car at the moment. He's busy defending from one of the Ferraris there. Anthony Pons and Fabien Barthez, the goalkeeper, former footballer, heads over the timing line. The Ferrari looking very fleet of foot there, isn't it?
Yes, I mean that is out and out straight line, whatever you want to call it, performance, as if the Aston didn't actually attempt to come on to what would be pit straight at full racing pace, because the Ferrari just ate it up. I mean, that was not something I would expect to see come Sunday, where that level of or differential in performance is so blatant, especially with a footballer driving.
Well, he know how to save a slide, won't he? Yeah. And he did play for the best team in the world. He was a Manchester United goalie, wasn't he?
Oh, I thought you were a Scouser.
You know how to upset somebody, John. Now, back to the plot. The Aston is 9th, looking strong in Pro-Am. We've had a time out of at least 60 cars. We then run out of television monitors to find 61st and 62nd, such is the size of the entry this weekend. We have confirmation that from earlier on, Philippe Gaillard, we talked about him being off the road and debris on the track as well. He'd come into contact with 33, which is the Jan Zefar, Miguel Toril, Kenneth Haya Mercedes, and the incident is under investigation.
Yeah, and also car team managers 70, 42 and 100 to report to race director immediately.
Track limits, possibly, or yellow
story.
flags. Now, McLaren 58 is the next car to focus on. Shane Van Gisbergen, Rob Bell, Kevin Est.
Should be a race-winning car.
Absolutely.
With the talent behind the wheel and the man running the team and owning the team. As there is a sister car, the 59.
Well, 58's Kevin Est at the wheel, but he's only 38th, John.
Well,
It's early days,
Nicolas
yeah.
Lapierre, along with Adrian Quaife-Hobbs, Alvaro Parent, in the sister car, the 59 car, running directly behind, in fact. So these two cars, if you had just talent alone, they would be on the front row of the grid. But of course, the whole essence of endurance racing is to ensure that no one manufacturer or make can dictate and dominate to that degree. So again, a car that is naturally suited to the curves of Silverstone, where it's more about lap time than out and out, let's say, speed in one part of the track. And both the McLarens running in tandem, having traffic, so they're backing one another up. And I mean, there's no point in the two cars running so closely together.
Est on the limit, but I thought going through Club at the end of Vale, the car was looking a bit nervous. As you say, he's got the sister car chasing hard, but they're way down the order. Of course, these really struggled at Monza, partly on the BOP and partly because they are new cars still being developed. Parent's 11th, that's a bit more encouraging, and in fact, Kevin Est now gets out of the way.
Yeah, I mean, the two cars are holding each other up effectively, and then they got held up by the BMW. So Kevin Est was bailed out of it as Alvaro Parent slides it away over the curb on the exit of the kink and then onto Wellington Straight. So I don't know why they think they're going to do any benefit from running together. I mean, there's no slipstream. What you gain in maybe in a straight line, in my view, you're going to lose because of interruption. And in particular on the McLaren, which is a very aerodynamically sensitive car, all its downforce is generated under the body rather than on the top surfaces, and dives into the pits. So that was a very late call from Alvaro Parent. Let's see if Kevin Est can do as the fastest lap time again, still with Laurent Banthor on the Audi. So Kevin Est, this is an opportunity to see what they've got available to them this weekend. The sister car, the 59 car, in 11th.
And that lap, not an improvement by Kevin Est, but of course we did see him get out of the way of Parent, so he would have sacrificed the lap. again, for my money, John, this looks like a nervous car. Kevin Aston is having to work hard to keep on top of this.
I remember when the MP412C, which is the predecessor to the 650S, came to Silverstone for the first time, and they had a strange aerodynamic effect which was causing the front to porpoise, and it was unbelievably bad through the Beckett. The 650S looks much, much better, but it is always knife edge kind of car. To get it to go quickly, you've got to drive it on that knife edge, and the knife edge, by definition, isn't a very wide one.
No, quite. And again, Kevin Aston working hard to keep it all under control at the end of Vale into Club, but it does not look a nice car to drive at the moment, this, for my money. Out of Club he comes. How's he doing in the sectors? Sector 1, slower than he has been. Busy old road here, coming down towards Stoke Corner. That's 6, isn't it? Audi back out again, which
the
is
rear
now...
wing, look at the wobble on the rear wing.
Yeah. It's got Marchi Lee in the wheel. This, I'm afraid, is not going to be a car that's going to be up there for a win, I don't think. Marchi Lee is quick. Marcus Winkelhock, very quick, but you've got Sean Fong as the third driver, who is new into car racing at this level this year. He's taking part in the Audi TT Cup, but when Winkelhock's behind the wheel, it's going to go quickly, that's for sure.
Yeah, so I mean, in that respect, it'll be a car that's going to be at the front of the grid, all based on the qualifying. But again, you can just see the straight line speed of the Nissan. It was able to draw slightly away from the Audi, just between the exit of Club and up into Abbey. In fact, I have to make a thanks to WRT team. They actually were able to assist me with a major problem I have back at home. Stopping the squirrels eating my birdseed. And I've got a cunning plan, and a part of it was helped by WRT.
I'm intrigued to know how a Belgian racing team sorts out your squirrels, but anyway.
A 3-foot length of old-fashioned welding rod. And if the squirrels can walk down that, then they can walk on water.
So now you know, teams can multitask, they can get involved in any form of life.
I went down the pit lane and said, welding rod, MIG welding or argon welding. Nobody does old-fashioned welding these days. But WRT, they've got it.
Fantastic. Also, Vincent Voss is a man of many parts, clearly. So...
See, I've just noticed the Ferrari there, and watch the Porsche, just how much braking actually the GT cars do. Porsche doesn't have that dive as the Ferrari does coming into Copse.
32 Aston, still Stuart Leonard shown as the driver. In fact, that car's just had a warning flag for track limits. And ahead is the Attempto Porsche that blotted its copybook when at Monza Dimitris Constantinou was behind the wheel. If you remember, he was very, very slow behind the safety car, thinking it was a full course yellow and caused the bottleneck. But anyway, we got around the problem in the end.
So the Porsche normally has got good straight line speed, albeit at the higher ends of the speed range. It's the aerodynamics in the Porsche which are rather old-fashioned by the standards of some of the more modern GT cars. So it loses out by putting downforce into the car. It becomes a very draggy car. It's got good grunt and good torque from the flat 6 engine, but unfortunately, just a little correction coming through Vale.
It must be a really frustrating part of the circuit there, because you want to nail the throttle, but presumably you've got to be very, very patient, because that corner seems to go on forever. Well,
it's one of those corners where it really is about slow in, get your position so as you can make your cut across for the first part of what is now a 2-part Club corner. And so if you drive in a little bit too quickly and you get out of position, then you lose the position that you need to be in. So it's about slow in and get your position correct, then onto the throttle. I mean, a car like the Aston, which is front or sort of a mid-engine, front-engine car, I mean, a traditional race car, but a lovely driver balance, easy to control on the steering and on the throttle.
Well, at the moment, we have Audi, BMW, Ferrari as the top 3. The Laurens Vanthoor time ahead of a Franck Pereira time ahead of then 333 Marco Seefried, although he's now pitted in fairness in the green Ferrari. The number 19 Lamborghini, after its on-track success at Monza, is only 22nd at the moment. Through goes the Aston and stays 9th.
Well, the Lamborghini in the race was almost, I mean, you have to say, it was untouchable. And not only did it win the race, but it just was in a different class. Subsequently, as often is the case, you show your hand in such an obvious way, there will be adjustments made to rein in that kind of advantage.
Fabio Babini is the driver of the car at the moment. There he is going through Village. Fabio, a winner here well over a decade ago in FIA GT races when he shared a Viper with Mark Duez from memory, but powering his way up now towards Aintree.
The strengths of this car at Monza, where also it had very good straight line top speed, and it worked particularly well on a racetrack where really there's only one what I would call quick corner, and that's Parabolica. Everything else is either a curva grande, or you've got the very much diminished two Lesmo corners. Whereas here at Silverstone, it's a bigger challenge. So Lamborghini are really back on the discovering what the car does and really how do they want to approach corners that are testing corners for anything.
Another encouraging thing about the whole project at Monza was the reliability. I know the other car had issues in terms of pit lane penalties and the like, but both cars got to the end. This one, the one on the track, went without missing a beat. And in the past, the Reiter cars and other private teams that have tried running Lamborghinis have struggled to get on top of the reliability of the cars, but that was just not an issue at all.
No, it wasn't. I mean the running gear, I think fundamentally is the same as it was in the Gallardos, or the various variations of the Gallardo. But nevertheless, to bring two brand new cars, having only done a limited amount of testing, and have them run as strongly, and in the case of the car that did take the provisional victory, virtually flawlessly, is an impressive bit of work by the Gottfried Grasser team, and of course the effort that was being put into it by the whole sort of the VW Audi group, who are the owners of the Lamborghini brand.
I think they said to you, didn't they, at the end of the race when you did the winners' interviews, that they had to adjust the BOP over the weekend because they were early on in the weekend the car was raised a little bit, so they straight away had to rethink what they were doing, and they still got through it and they still won on the road.
Yeah, I mean the raising of the ride height at Monza doesn't hurt you in the same way it will hurt you here, because essentially you're looking for top speed at Monza. You're looking to try and carry that top speed as early as you can down the two straights, whereas here it's about momentum through all the high-speed corners, and that's where the rising of the ride height, not only does it take away some of the aero, but it lifts the whole centre of gravity, which again in turn creates secondary problems.
Now there's 51, that's the Duncan Cameron Matt Griffin Ferrari in Pro-Am, and it's Griff at the wheel of it, so it's fifth fastest, as you might anticipate.
Yeah, Matt Griffin, a prominent member of the IRDC, IRDC, and he keeps us up to date, up to speed on every event that he's taking part in, and normally he does pretty well. Irish Racing Drivers Club.
It's often two events a weekend, like at Monza. He was here on the Saturday and race at Monza on the Sunday. And Matt, who is very much part of the Ferrari family, very, very quick driver. Give him a Ferrari 458 and he will go absolutely flat out, barely makes a mistake. Very, very nice guy, much underrated still, strangely, but he really is one of the stars in a Ferrari, and he and Duncan Cameron have raced together for quite a long time. Matt Griffin is fifth fastest, and he's second at the moment in Pro-Am, behind the Front Pereira Henri Acide BMW. But Matt Griffin using all of the road and then some, in fact, coming out of Aintree.
Everybody's doing the same thing. I mean, they're just all running wide, and this is why the race directors bringing in the team managers of the variety of teams, because pretty much every corner at Silverstone, certainly the quicker corners, worst example I think is in the exit of Club, where people are doing it on occasions, where they've got not just four wheels off the racetrack, they've actually got almost four wheels in the spectator areas. They're so far off, and that is something that will be penalised. But if it's there, drivers think, well, if I can just let the car release a little bit earlier, I can carry the speed, and I'll go to the limit, and I'll go over the limit. When I go over the limit, well, maybe I'll realise that I've found out what I am allowed to do, and because there's no actual rule book, unless you go through every corner in a driver briefing and say, here is off limits. I suspect in the driver briefing there will be an element of that being brought up. But
the other element is, of course, that those track limits are policed by marshals, so good a job as they do, there's always that human error element in there, or they might miss one, or be less vigilant than on another corner.
Look at that V6 turbo power. I mean, loads and loads of torque. Just coming down into Stowe Corner.
That's the Chio Buncombe Wright car, isn't it? And it's Katsumasa Chio at the wheel of it, and the car currently is 26th fastest. He's think that's a long way down, but then out of 62, it's not too bad, really.
Well, right now what we're seeing is, well, unsurprisingly, Lawrence Van Four quickest. Nevertheless, many teams are going through, we keep talking about the cycling through of their drivers. They're using sets of tyres which they've carried over from Monza. They want to keep their best tyres, obviously, for Sunday, because that's when they get the benefit from it. And we know that the man who should be here but who's not, Bernd Schneider, that's one of his very avowed policies, is, you know, what we do in practice and qualifying, usually if you're in a Pro-Am car, your grid position isn't quite as critical as if you are in a Pro car. But if you've got the fresh tyres for each of those 3 driver stints, then you can actually do something worthwhile.
The time still very competitive. You've got only a 10th between the top 2, between the times that were set by Laurens Vanthoor and Franck Pereira. It is now Robin Frins who's taken over number 1, but the best lap set early on by Vanthoor. Robin Frins has only just got out of the pit lane. Pierre Caffer up to 3rd fastest in the Black Pearl Racing Ferrari that he shares with Stephen Parov.
Very, very strong force at Monza, Pierre Caffer.
Yeah, absolutely. And he's another one, isn't he? Fresh from the Nürburgring 24 hours for Audi.
Nobody's fresh from Nürburgring. Everybody's dragging the knuckles.
On board with the Nissan round cops. And now John, speed building up towards Beckett's.
Right, well, here's the view from the outside of the circuit. I mean, let's look on board and take a lot of curb when you turn right. The whole area, this is the sort of middle part of Beckett's, getting your car sort of as straight as possible, so as when you exit the corner, you've got the least amount of drag on the car. Nissan has got a lot of torque, so they've got to be aware that this thing of braking traction and down at the loop.
That's not encouraging, is it? That's a car that went off in the bronze test. Then it was being driven by Andre Berzin and it caused a red flag to be retrieved. It's back on track. Who's driving it at the moment? 25 Ferrari.
It is same, yeah.
Berzin again. Now, Bentley coming into Brooklands. That's the 84, isn't it? That's the HTP car that's been held up in traffic. That's the Vincent Abril, Mike Parisi, Harold Primac car. And that, again, takes some hunting to find in the classification. 45th, Mike Parisi at the wheel of it. Mike's been around here many a time. Vincent Abril was out of the bronze test, Silverstone rookie. But there is the car going through Copse Corner. HTP, of course, forsaking Mercedes for a British brand for this year.
Yes, they had been to Silverstone earlier in the season. In fact, before the Monza 3-hour race, they did a test here, and they were very happy indeed with not just the performance, but the general handling of the Bentley. So, having had a difficult season so far, it hasn't gone particularly well. And you think back to Brands Hatch a couple of weeks ago, when one of their cars ended up very heavily damaged at the exit of Paddock Hill.
Pierre Caffer trying to find a way through, and he's not hanging around, is he?
No. I mean, I don't think. What was that all about?
Good Lord.
Strange.
Yeah, absolutely. But again, that is a very, very quick Ferrari. 3rd overall. You've got another one, Marco Seifried's car, 4th overall. So the Ferraris have got the speed still in the right hands. This session has got 41 minutes to go, incidentally. So he just nudged over the halfway point. And that is 84. Parisi on to Wellington Straight then, and it's not looking too bad. The sectors are being strung together okay. Well, the first one was good, but he's a bit down in the second sector, irritatingly.
Yeah, I mean, it's wherever you look, you're going to have traffic of some description. Yeah. You might be lucky and come up against a pro car. You may be unfortunate and come up against a gentleman driver who is, you know, feeling his way around the high-speed curves of Silverstone, unlike we're going to see with the WRT Audi, Stefan Rakelmi.
This is a quick car, 5th. Rishami has just taken it, having been the absolute best in the middle sector. So this car then up to 5th fastest, number 3, which is the car driven by Stefan Rishami, Stefan Ortelli and Frank Stippler. So 3 very, very good drivers there.
I would say that's a good bet. That's if you wanted to go to the bookies and put a $5 each way, I think that's a good car for a position for a podium.
Incidentally, the Jaguar is back out and circulating after being retrieved early on. But Stéphane Rochelme here, what's he doing in the sectors? Personal best in the first sector. So this is looking pretty good. And actually, there isn't that much traffic around him. He's found his way past the Barwell BM, but there's not that much getting in his way. I know that's tempting fate, but let's see what's around the corner. 39 minutes on the clock. So it is a WRT Audi that tops the times. The number 1 entry with Robin Frins driving it, Lawrence Vantour having done the time. And Franck Pereira's BMW hanging on in there, still second fastest in the car that's now being driven by Eric Dermont. It's a Pro-Am car, that. And then 5th, number 3 Audi, here it is, out of the loop through Aintree. And Stéphane Rochelme has done another absolute best in the middle sector. This is looking good, John.
Yes, this is going to be a strong time from the young Monegasque. And he's only got now the entry into Brooklands. And there's not any big challenge really in Brooklands. Again, the key is getting yourself lined up to come into the 2 part of Luffield. And then getting on the throttle, not over ambitious, not get just about that's acceptable. Running that wide is just about acceptable.
And the time to beat is a 2 minutes 2.1, and he does a 2 minutes 1.9. Stéphane Rochelme onto the top of the times, and he does it by 0.199 of a second. Good effort.
You know, he's very familiar with Silverstone Grand Prix circuit from his GP2 days.
Absolutely right,
so he knows the limits of the track. He knows how much he can push. He knows where he can get away with things and other parts of the racetrack where you want to be neat and tidy. So there's an example of a driver coming from a single-seater background, applying that knowledge and just outright ability. And for the first time, we've seen Laurens Vantour been slightly eclipsed by a younger teammate. And Laurens Vantour is only 25.
Exactly. And his younger brother is here racing in Formula Renault. This is the other Bentley incident, number 8, which was overlooked a little bit at Monza. It's the Max Buch, Maxime Soulet, Andy Soucek car. I think Andy Soucek is probably the real star in that, but Max Buch is no slouch either, former champion.
Oh, I think Max Buch would question that.
You reckon?
Oh, definitely.
Okay. But Maxime Soulet, I think it's fair to say, isn't on the pace of those two. He's not far off it, but he's not quite as quick. Let's see who's behind the wheel of it at the moment. 8 has slipped down the order a little bit. In fact, number 7 is 23rd, and this is 34th. Max Buch at the wheel of the car. And a 2 minutes 4.189, 34th fastest.
So there is what was the quickest car, now with the Bentley behind. So personal best in the first sector on this lap.
Getting a bit twitchy at Stowe, isn't it?
Well, it's slightly off the apex on the entry and a little wide early on the exit.
He has done a personal best in sector 1, so Max Buch here trying to haul the car up the order a little bit.
He didn't take part in the Nürburgring 24.
No.
He said. I spoke to him this morning. And when he had that incident at Brands Hatch on the exit of Paddock Hill Bend, being a little chap that he is, he got sort of quite heavily bruised. His knee hit the roll cage, and that hurts, believe me.
Yeah.
You know, so you get a big bang on your knee and your elbow. So just a little check in his normal exuberance and confidence for the young German driver. Nothing special in the second sector. Look at the traffic.
Absolutely. And he's backed out of it, hasn't he?
Yeah,
because there's no way he can make his way through that. Yeah. So bought the lap. And if he can buy himself some clear track space, then he might speed up again. But the danger is that other people behind him get past him, and then the constant wave of traffic never goes away. So is he going to pit? I think he might be staying out of there. Max Buch, who really shone in Mercedes a couple of years ago, new to Bentley this year. Now he does pick up his pace, accelerates up towards the timing line. And we have got 35 minutes of the session to go. So this Bentley is 34th. Max Buch goes through. And still the fastest then is number 3, Stéphane Rochelme, for 2 minutes 1.990. We've not yet got anybody below the 2 minute mark. Might come in qualifying tomorrow.
Well, I doubt in this session we're going to see anybody doing what would be their simulation qualifying run. So a lot of it is going to be just the work that a team does in preparation. And ultimately, it's going to come from a pro car, or in the case of some of the Pro-Ams, the Pro and the Pro-Am car, as we saw very clearly in Monza, where the Ferraris, in particular the Caffa car, Pierre Caffa, got it on the front row of the grid.
Crowded house, look, Ferrari and Audi to be negotiated by Max Buch. And once again, the traffic is a problem, but they're just going to get on with it, because they're going to have it all weekend. And of course, they'll have it in profusion at Spa when we get to the 24 hours.
Do we know what the entry for Spa is yet? Is it still
a number? I'm not sure. I think it's heading to 70, isn't it? But then often you find that teams that have been promised drivers with money then have to back out because the money doesn't come through. So we lose a few before the race weekend itself. But it's going to be a great spectacle, come what may. One of the best weekends of the year, the Spa 24 hours. The Bentleys last year struggled a little bit there because they've been with the adjusted BOP, and 8 in that race was the one that seemed to have all the woes. Even, was it on the second lap it got involved in contact? Very early on in the race anyway. It was delayed early on.
The first 6 hours of the Spa 24 last year was a crash fest.
Absolutely. Now, what about this lap from Max Buch? He's down to 35th. He's meant to be improving. Comes up towards the timing line. The sectors don't look too flash, do they? Didn't improve in 1 nor 2 nor 3, so he stays 35th fastest.
I mean, frankly, I don't think it's relevant to what we will see qualifying tomorrow morning. We may see a slight change later this afternoon when they get the second free practice session. Track conditions will be, again, different. We've got overcast skies. It's not cold per se, but it's probably ambient about 14, 15 Celsius. There's little wind blowing, which is unusual at Silverstone because it is slightly higher than the surrounding countryside, so it picks up any weather variations, but right now pretty benign looking in terms of the wind element. And just the more running that we get on the circuit as the Mercedes goes off. Alexei Karachev.
Now, where's he done that? That's coming out of Beckett's through... No, it's not. It's coming out of Aintree, isn't it? Just after the loop onto Wellington Straight.
Unusual place to see a car off track.
Absolutely.
Gullwing door is open, and that may well be a technical issue more than a driver mistake coming out of the loop. So again, car in a safe place, but they will want to get that car removed to behind the barriers where possible, and the marshals trying to push up in grass, which is never the easiest thing to do. And of course, I'm assuming that they got the car into neutral, which would be a start.
So we've got a yellow flag within the 3rd sector, and people improving lap times under a yellow flag had to get frowned upon, to say the least. But that's not for shifting, is it?
No, it is actually on a bit of tarmac, in fact, not on the grass, but nevertheless, if the car is stopped and it happens to be in gear, they've got to get the...
And Rinat Salikov, coming through Brooklands, has just gone past an Audi that's run very, very wide all over the escape road, and I think it's the Pro-Am WRT car which has just got going, looking back from the Ferrari. Bentley behind. Great shot this, coming into Woodcote. And the Ferrari gets away from the Bentley, doesn't it?
Certainly did there.
Absolutely.
I think that lot have gone unnoticed down in the folk from Crewe. See how much the Bentley catches up coming through Copse, though.
Interesting, isn't it?
So that's the seesaw within. Look again how much closer it gets coming into Beckett's. So the Bentley is capable of coming into a corner quicker and maintaining that benefit through the corner. So on to Hangar Straight. Let's see how much the Ferrari, well, it pulls over to the left of the racetrack. The Bentley looks to have a go down the inside, but it's just being dropped. The flight's flashing. He's going to look at it up the inside, but he's not close enough to make anything of it into Stowe. He might have a pop down the hill into Vale because he's within the range of making a move. The lights again going. But the Ferrari just pulls it out now. Can he get... Yeah, he's going to go down the inside. Yeah. The Ferrari pulls over. That's an interesting... I think a lot of teams might have been watching that. And or those that have managed to get their TVs hooked up in the garage, of course. But I think a lot of people will feel that... Right... Bentley's a V8 turbo and the Ferrari's a V8 aspirated. Ferrari's a lot quicker down the straight than the Bentley.
But now the Bentley is through, starting to gap the Ferrari. Max Buch still pressing on, still 35th though, unfortunately, in that Bentley. And the yellow flags are still out in the third sector, and we've got just under half an hour of the session still to run now. There is Renat Salikov, race winner, outright winner at Monza then, with Norbert Siedler. And Marco Seefried is the third driver here this weekend. The Mercedes, you can see in the background, I think he's going to have to stay there for the duration of this session. It is out of harm's way, so it can stay there. So through Brooklands streams the field.
The 24-hour race that was here a few weekends ago, you weren't here for that, I take,
no.
I'm just wondering, how many cars did that? Was it a similar number?
Something, no, it wasn't as big a number as it has been. It was something like 30, mid-30s.
Okay.
Mid-30s, yeah.
So I'm just wondering if any of the competitors in that event are taking part. I suspect there are a few.
I think people like Devon Modell in the Acura-Cos BMW is one, for example.
I was thinking about Oliver Bryant and Andrew McCaig, people like that. So they're familiar with having to deal with traffic and take a view rather than getting stressed.
This is looking back from the Nissan. We've been on board the Ferrari and seen how that pulls away from other cars. This is on board with the Nissan. Alex Buncombe's your driver. Takes a lot of curve into Beckett's.
The whine of the transmission. You barely hear the engine over the noise of the transmission.
True. Right, speed building down the hanger straight. McLaren ahead. But is the opposition staying with him?
Well, some of the Nissan squad will be making their way across the English Channel for next weekend's test day, or test days, at La Sarthe. Both Alex Buncombe as a driver, Jan Marlborough likewise, and some of the Bob Neville team members giving a hand to that programme as it makes its appearance for the first time in a motor race this year. But nice to see what the speed we're getting down Wellington Straight, just to compare it to Hanger Straight now that we've got a small amount of wind actually picking up again. At one point there was none at all. To see what part of the racetrack actually is the quickest, because it's important for teams to have that little bit of information to determine what way do we want to go with our downforce levels. Do we really go for the higher level to give us the maximum potential in a single lap, or when it comes to having to deal with overtaking lapping cars, of which some may be quicker down the straight than your car is. So that's all the kind of work that teams are filtering through, as we see yet again a gaggle of McLarens, and back to the number one, second quickest right now, Robin Freehan's behind in the WRT Audi in that distinctive sort of turquoise and black colour scheme.
But Friends has done the absolute best in Sector 1, so this could get the car back to the top of the times here. He's taken it over, of course, from Laurence Vantour. Vantour was quicker earlier on. Oops, big spin for the Ferraris. That the 17 Anderson Jensen car coming out of club.
And does it have a problem? It looks like it's slightly down on the left rear, or is it just an optical, where I may be sitting at a slight angle and maybe not getting a true perspective. Anyway, the car has pulled off onto the outside of club corner, maybe just to reset everything within the cockpit.
Sure. Friends down in the middle sector, so he's lost about 3/10, in fact, in the middle part of the lap, so it may not be quite as good as I was anticipating. This Robin Friends moving to GTs from single-seater racing, and in fact aborts the lap. So having been quicker than anybody in Sector 1, ultimately the call comes over the radio box.
Don't show your hand too early. That's a WRT call.
Yeah, indeed. There's the Ferrari getting going again. I think it is 17, isn't it? The Danish entry, Jensen and Anderson.
Nothing like driving back on track when there's a whole load of cars coming. and let them sort themselves out. You know, sorry chaps, didn't see you. Oh.
And there is a big gap in the traffic, if only you'd have known.
The trouble is rear visibility with all the, you know, your helmet on, your hands and neck device, and high-headed, you know, seats and roll cages and all the gubbins. It is actually rearward visibility is somewhat limited. Nevertheless, the exit of Club is a corner where you're coming probably about 90 miles an hour, 100 miles an hour. So if you do pull out into a group of cars coming, you may cause consternation.
Absolutely, absolutely. Pit lane pretty busy at the moment. We've got 24 minutes still to run. You can see the countdown on the top of the screen, but quite a lot shown as being in pit. The road is still busy. It's not deserted, far from it, but there's quite a lot happening in the pit lane as the last driver is cycled through for the last few minutes. Number 7 Bentley with Stephen Kane at the wheel, only 23rd. Frustrating. Number 17 incidentally the Ferrari that we saw spin at Club, that has made it back to the pit lane. It's just coming down the pit road now, and it was Martin Jensen having a rear off in that car. Right, on board now with Stephen Kane. Bentley booms down towards Copse Corner. Into the Beckett's S's. Left, right,
pretty
left
much
again.
flat through there, actually.
Traffic ahead that's going to be encountered at just the wrong point, but the Ferrari gets out of the way.
He was praying it wasn't going to suddenly make a late cut.
Yeah.
Stephen Kane carried a lot of speed with the Bentley into Beckett's, and that's what I was listening for. Now watch down into Stowe. Let's listen again to where he brakes and if he goes down one gear or more. Has to wait quite late in the exit of the corner before he gets on the throttle fully. Short shifts between Vale and then coming into Club. That's where the balance of the Bentley is so good. You can really use the balance of throttle and steering. Down the gear again. Takes a lot of curve on the inside into Abbey.
Up to the loop, turn left, and then it opens up into Aintree, and then left again onto Wellington Straight.
And this is flat out, no problem. Again, just running the curb on the exit of the corner, up into 6th gear, and then you can brake quite late coming down here into Brooklands, because, and you can see just quite how late he got onto the brakes. Get hard on the throttle, then takes the early apex, then lets it run high-ish, then back down again for the second part of Luffield, then good clean exit, good drive. So this should see an improvement for Stephen Kane as he comes across start-finish line.
Well, that lap from Stephen Kane was a 2:3.879, so he was 62 thousandths slower than his earlier best.
I would put that down simply to the team are running. Oh, nice one. That'll be a few quid off your membership or onto your membership next year, Stephen. I would imagine they're running on the oldest tyres they've got, because there's no point in recycling your best tyres for something which is a free practice.
Absolutely. But Stephen is on it, isn't he? I mean,
he
flashing
is.
the lights, he's getting as much as he can out of this car. There's the other Bentley in the background coming onto Hanger Straight. The Jaguar, one car but one back, which has returned after its earlier travails, and has got Freddie Bath at the wheel. In fact, the Jaguar is 42nd, so it's got decent pace when it's going. And 120 BMW running in the Pro Cup. Dominic Baumann, Maximilian Sandritter and Claudia Hertgem. Another competitive car, I think this may be. Dominic Baumann is at the wheel of it. He was impressive in the Sprint Series last year. Went well, for example, at Baku. And he's got the car to 16th, 2 minutes 3.301.
What's Claudia Hertgen been doing for the last series or last years? She appears occasionally.
Yeah, I think the old ADAC GT race, the German championship, but not quite as prolific as she used to be. But still quick, still very competitive. Whoops, almost contact in the background. Ferrari getting away the Audi. Right, is Baumann on for an improvement here? Sector times would suggest not. He's only 4 thousandths down on Nikolai Silvestre's Mercedes. Baumann through. Swings his way out of Copse Corner into the last 20 minutes of this free practice period now. That car being run by Team Schubert, one of the top BMW teams. Through the Beckett's S's, ahead is the motor-based Oman racing team Aston Martin. It's got Johnny Adam behind the wheel. And Johnny Adam is 10th fastest in the Aston, so that's another competitive car. Johnny is another underrated driver. He and Andy Soucek went very well, didn't they, in Azerbaijan last year in the final of the Sprint Series. But Johnny Adam is 10th, and there is Dominic Baumann 16th behind him.
Well, people like Johnny Adam, who are racing GT cars almost weekend in, weekend out in the UK, so they know this place intimately. And again, just going through the motions of information gathering, not specifically looking at an out-and-out lap time. That'll come, I imagine, later this afternoon when conditions will be maybe better. But of course, when we go to qualifying on Sunday, it's 9 o'clock start. I mean, how unreasonable can you be?
The track will be cold, and
everything will be, I mean,
drivers will be cold. Yeah,
everything. Tyres, track.
Might be wet even.
I doubt it'll be wet at that time of the morning. It may come down late morning, early afternoon. I think it's holding off until the race starts.
Oh, that's kind.
The forecast that we've been able to glean. So the only news about that sort of early start is if you put on a new set of tyres, ordinarily they will get to temperature, and you might get a couple or 3 laps out of them before they then reach the peak of their performance.
Now, what else are we going to have before the end of this session? As we've been making the point, it isn't just about lap times, it is about working on the car and getting it right for qualifying. Quite a few drivers are still being warned about track limits, and quite a few team managers have been up to see the race director. And the fastest car is number 3 Audi from WRT, Frank Stippler, now driving it. And he's done a 2 minutes 3.3 last time around. About the best time set by Stefan Rochelmi in that car earlier on in the session. Johnny Adam and Dominic Baumann running together still. Johnny 10th, Dominic Baumann 16th. And the Aston Martin with Johnny Adam at the wheel, run by David Bartram's team. It's under the badge of the Oman racing team, but it's a car run from Kent.
Well, I was just going to say, keep an eye on the Aston coming up behind the Ferrari, because that would be a telling indication if Ferrari have still got that kind of advantage that they enjoyed at Monza, but that pulled over, let these two cars go through. Johnny Adam and Dominic Baumann, both well versed in their respective brands. Aston Martin, and there is the Mercedes.
Yes,
no,
it is. I think it's the Black Falcon car of
yes,
Hubert Haupt, Abdulaziz Al Faisal and Yelmer Berman, I think, looking at the back of it. It's up at Luffield anyway, and it's a yellow flag, and the marshals are there to try and give it a little shove and get it back into the session. I was right, it is the Haupt car.
Never happy to see marshals running through gravel traps when cars are still coming through, albeit under a double waved yellow flag. But these are substantial bits of kit, and if you push too hard on the rear wing, well, that's not what they're designed for.
Spinning the wheels, but he's in danger of digging himself in more. Hubert Haupt had just been warned about respecting track limits.
That's right. Push the
wing,
unfortunately,
guys. He's off the track.
That's not what you need to do.
The marshals doing their bit to get the car out of the gravel bed, but I fear this is going to need more than... Oh no,
well,
people power will do it.
Yep, I think that might be a prop half, that guy. They've got his hip and shoulder to it.
Excellent work by the marshals.
Half prop, what is it? Scrum half.
So now they've got to wait for a gap in the traffic. Hubert Haupt's away again, brings a bit of the gravel onto the road, but thankfully track's clear again now.
Luckily able to go straight into the pits.
Yeah.
And there'll be a little bit of gravel in the tail of the car around the diffuser area, but that'll be cleaned away very quickly. Hopefully not much of it got onto the circuit.
11th fastest is the BMW with Sergio Jimenez at the wheel of it, part of the BMW Sports Trophy Team Brazil lineup. 2 cars, of course, for this and for the Sprint Series.
They'll not be very happy here this weekend.
Too cold.
Yeah, exactly.
And also a circuit that they just don't know, got no data for, not been here before. Drivers are unfamiliar with it.
Well, I mean, the drivers, I hope, are going to really love the circuit. But it is, I think, noticeable that when the sun is shining and the ambient is high, it actually helps.
Really? Well, the car is not doing badly, and Jimenez has done a personal best in Sector 1, doesn't improve in the end of the lap, stays 11th fastest, but BMW's not the ideal car for Silverstone, but it's not going badly, that one at the moment. 15 minutes just under remain in the session. The sister car's quite a long way down. 77 is 29th. A little bit of a wobble through Beckett's there.
BMW have developed the 6 Series to be the future of their GT racing.
You thought the Bentley looked big. That's a big car as well.
Well, it is a large car. It's larger than the Z4M,
Yeah.
that's for sure.
We've had the 6 Series before, haven't we, in the earlier days of the European GT3 Challenge, but it'll be fascinating to see how the new car squares up against the current GT3 opposition, because the goalposts have been moved again.
Yeah, well, M Sport division in Munich, no doubt, pretty good at assessing what's going to be beneficial to their company as it runs again pretty wide. Lots of light flashing as they come down the pit straight and dives up the inside going into Abbey and gets it done. I think that was a big assist, really, letting the BMW get through. Now it's backed off and holding the Ferrari up, having done the work to get through, and it's sort of a bit pointless to me, all this.
Renat Salikov's Ferrari was the one he just gone charging past. 13 minutes still to run. Pit lane getting a bit busier once more as a few more cycle back in.
Jimenez, I think, really just deciding to look for track position to get a clear lap as the Audi dives down the inside as well. So that's the pressure you have to deal with, and Ferrari, in fairness, has responded to it. Maybe as we look at the real racing, and that's off in the gravel, that's going to have an effect undoubtedly on Jimenez, because there'll be a yellow flag in that part of the racetrack.
Klaus Graf, the driver, and Klaus hugely experienced, so strange that he's made a mistake, unless there was another car involved in that.
Strange place to go off.
Yeah, like he's got it wrong at Beckett's and then gone across the road,
Yeah.
but might get a replay of that. It's coming out of Beckett's through the Chapel Curve section, isn't it?
You don't often see a car going off at that part of the exit of the corner, unless he's gone wide on the outside and then spun
across the road.
Right across the racetrack.
Yeah.
But anyway, we may have a view of that in a minute or two. 12 minutes remaining in the session. That's blue skies. That blue skies are just an illusion.
It's brightening, I'll grant you that. So Klaus Graf is in the gravel. Now the question is whether that car's going to be able to be moved. It could be that we end up with an interruption here, because it's fairly close to the edge of the road.
Well, it's all 4 wheels in the gravel, although they're not actually buried, but I suspect the car is pretty low to the axles in the gravel, so it may well need a vehicle to pull it, and again we'll have certainly a localized yellow, if not a full course yellow. We should actually, at Silverstone, we may well have the facility to have a virtual safety car, because the circuit will be required to have all that wiring and whatever in place for the Grand Prix in July. Are they going to try and pull it or push it? Well, I think they just pushed it into a deeper hole.
Yeah, I'm not sure that worked.
No.
I'm afraid.
What happens is the spoiler is digging into the gravel, and eventually it's a bit like that sort of type of motorsport where you drag, what do they call that motorsport? You drag these...
Like tractor pulling.
Tractor pulling.
Yeah.
That's the sort of almost the opposite of tractor pulling. You're digging it in rather than trying to pull it.
I like the message from the race director, car 99 still in the gravel, because that didn't really help at all, I'm afraid. The plan was to try and push it through rather than pull it, but it didn't work. So Klaus Graf is in the gravel bed, 10 minutes remain. It's interesting how different race directors treat situations like this. Alain Adam, who is the race director for Blancpain, is happy to let the marshals try and get the cars out of the way if possible. I was at a race meeting in Germany a couple of weeks ago where an incident that you thought was fairly innocuous straight away would bring out full course yellows or safety cars, and never really got going properly.
That's go in and send the team manager up to that's what they are always arguing against, abuse of track limits, and that was a classic example of a total abuse of the limit coming out of club.
Now into the last 10 minutes. Into the pit lane comes 18. Maro Engel, after its wide moment at Club Corner, the former British Formula 3 front runner, heads down the pit lane. Former DTM racer as well, Maro Engel.
I mean, every driver who's ever raced is a DTM these days.
It feels like it, doesn't it? It gets cycled through quite a lot.
It certainly does.
It's interesting that of the two Maximilians, Buch and Gertz, one's gone to the DTM with Mercedes as a factory driver, the other one has jumped ship and gone to Bentley. I wonder how much of that was down to Mercedes and how much was down to him. Anyway, Porsche versus Audi there. 37 out of the AM Cup. Claude Gosselin, Marc Rostan after his earlier spin, Jean-Claude Lanier's car. Should be competitive in the AM class, that. The Porsche, also from the AM category, run by the Attempto team, goes flashing past. Frank Schmickler, Jürgen Hering, the two quicker drivers in that. Dimitris Constantinou, the third. And Stephen Kane is under investigation for overtaking under a yellow flag, interestingly. It was for a yellow flag infringement. They got the drive-through penalty in the race last year. 36, another of the AM Audis from Saint-Loc. That's the Jean-Paul Buffin, Georges Cabin, Gilles Lallemand car.
Say that again?
Well, all three of them.
Well, the last one.
Gilles Lallemand. Your turn.
No, I'll just stick to the ones I can pronounce, I'm afraid.
Right, out of nowhere, Joe Osborne in the 888 BMW has done the absolute best in the first sector. I don't think we've seen the car all session, but it's been pounding around with Ryan Ratcliffe and Lee Mole. It's in the middle, no, it's in the last sector now, in fact. It didn't improve in the middle, but Joe Osborne, 15th, looked very, very good at the start of the lap.
That sounds to me like a last-minute run on something that is a better set of tyres than they've had at any point. There is the car, lights flashing, so let's look and see.
It's also, you've got your fastest driver in as well now. So combination of factors and working nicely. Joe Osborne then up towards the line. Again, the traffic's gone against him, but it's going to go against everybody. And 15th he was, and he crosses the line, and he does improve to go 6th fastest on a 2 minutes 2.601. Good effort.
Very good effort. I suspect, as I said earlier, that he's had a slightly better set of tyres fitted. As great a driver as he may be, that level of gain is not just simply about the guy behind the wheel.
So add it all together and up to the top 6.
Certainly getting on with the programme.
Absolutely, yeah. Curb, dirt, you name it.
And a good, I mean, obviously traffic in the middle of Beckett's, which could have easily interfered with his momentum. He's maintained that momentum, so let's watch and see what Joe Osborne does as he comes into. So that's 36.7 is the first sector time. He's got a challenge. He's 2/10ths down. Bearing in mind, traffic in Beckett's not a bad effort.
Absolutely right. So he powers his way out of Stoke Corner, down through Vale. 6.5 minutes are on the clock. 888, a team with a great reputation in touring car racing. Ian Harrison now co-owner, along with Lee Mole, who's one of the drivers of this, but it was when it was purely Ian Harrison's team that it won title after title in the British Touring Car Championship.
Don't
Joe
like
Osborne
that,
is wide
Joe
again.
Osborne, don't like that. You've taken liberties.
Well, I'm waiting for 888 to appear on this list of cars that must respect track limits. But for the moment, he's got away with it.
It'll be interesting to see if this isn't a further improvement in lap time.
Yeah.
And he's going to get held up now by the Mercedes.
Red flag, session stopped.
So why is the red flag out? Have we seen, well, we haven't seen anything that would indicate a red flag was necessary.
No.
There's a car somewhere.
It's not actually come out at the start line yet, but it's on the timing screen. And
there's a blue flag being waved, so where's the red flag from? We've got red flag on screen, as you pointed out, David. Yes.
Yeah. But I'm looking at the marshal's post on the start line, which is, if you like, the chief marshal's post, and there's no red flag there. So whether it's come up in error, I don't know. But
it's gone green.
It's gone green again.
I suspect that might be whoever pushes the button for the red flag. Go in and see the race director.
So finger trouble. Well, I promise you, we had red flags on our screens, but not around the circuit. So that would have confused the teams a little bit. And we are still live then, 5 minutes. And of course, seeing a red flag on the timing screen, some of the teams have been on the radio to the drivers saying red flag, pit, and some are back right off and don't understand what's going on. So there's a bit of confusion out of all of that.
Well, I mean, that's the sort of thing you don't expect.
Yeah.
The red flag is the ultimate. When it's shown or lights are shown around the racetrack, it means immediately slow down to a pace that is appropriate to the requirements and come into the pit lane. In the meantime, Robin Frien's still in #1 Audi. Nothing in particular, the sector times. Well, he's just done an out lap, so this will be his first flying lap on this particular run.
And just 4 minutes.
Aintree, onto the back straight, onto, well, not the back straight, it's not Wellington straight.
Just 4 minutes to go, so he's only going to get a couple of laps out of this at most.
Do you think Wellington Straight's named after the school or after the Duke of Wellington? Or is it the same thing, really?
It was Wellington Bombers that it was named after.
Wellington
Bombers.
Wellington Bombers. Even with a satellite, which went World War II.
Didn't they have Silverstone as their base during the war?
Well, Silverstone was a satellite World War II airport. It wasn't. It was sort of there in the case of it was needed, rather than, I think, being. I mean, I've got to go through the history. I'm sure some of our colleagues in the commentary booth further down will be able to give us chapter and verse. Because you've got Wellington. But it's Wellington School, isn't it, across the road? Was that Wellington? A Stowe School. Stowe School.
Yeah.
So we'll call it Stowe Straight then, rather than Wellington.
Right, McLaren, Lamborghini, BMW, this next little group. And the McLaren is the Kevin Estre car that we looked at earlier on. Now it's got Shane van Gisbergen behind the wheel of it. The Lamborghini is flattering to deceive a little bit, not carrying on the great pace shown at Monza. 19, Andrew Palmer, only 35th. There it is, that was the car that won on the road in Italy.
Well, we've noticed all through the session when we've had this car on screen, it's looked twitchy, particularly coming in here to Abbey. Looked like there's a lot of aero on the front end and just making it slightly difficult for the drivers to give that ultimate bit of confidence behind the wheel, which you need in those quick corners.
So Andrew Palmer, who I think I'm right in saying he's racing here for the first time, having come out of the American Lamborghini series from last year. He won the World Final as well, part of the young driver program that Lamborghini is operating, and he turns his way now down towards Brooklands, up towards Luffield. He's going to squeeze one more lap out of this, maybe just about time enough for 2, but it's going to be touch and go. The lap, remember, is just over 2 minutes, so depending on where he is when it gets to 2 minutes and 1 second, he will be on to his last lap, in fact, and now as he crosses the timing line.
He's not going to make another lap. This will be his last lap, because his current lap time is in. Oh, again, car looks so twitchy in entry. I mean, you can see he's run so wide, having to correct the car coming into Copse. We never saw any of that from this brand new Lamborghini Hurricane. So why suddenly is the car looking a lot more tricky to commit to than we saw at Monza?
It's a similar shape to the McLaren, isn't it? And that also looked nervous. I know there's a reason for why that you explained earlier, but you've got the two of them together, in fact, there. Look, the orange McLaren, the green Lamborghini. Neither of them looking easy.
No, I mean, the McLaren has never looked a car that you would describe as an easy car to drive. Quick car, but never easy. This car at Monza looked like you could drive it anywhere on the racetrack, any day of the week. Today, at Silverstone, it's looking much more of a challenge. And frankly, other than it's had such a reassessment of its BOP, I can't think of any other reason.
So the flag is imminent. We have an Audi 1-2 with the number 3 car being the quickest by 0.199 of a second. Number 1 Audi has just boxed, or come into the pit lane. Box is engineer jargon. That's how they communicate it to the driver. Box means come in to your pit box. It's the instruction over the radio. And there is number 19 Lamborghini, which is still 35th. And struggling really in this session. So the flag will be out for that car this time around when it gets to the timing line. The rest of the field going on to a last lap, but I'm looking for an improvement that's going to come from anybody. Frank Pereira's back out in number 12 BMW, who has done a personal best in the first sector. But again, finding an improvement is difficult, especially if you're on old tyres, because of the traffic. Lamborghini number 19 will take the flag, so also will 58 McLaren. In fact, 58 will be the first car to take it. And where did 58 end up in the end of that session? Quite a long way down, I think. Oh no, 19th, tell you a lie. Shane van Gisbergen improving on his last lap. That's why I couldn't find it, because he suddenly rocketed up to 19th. So the Giz, racing at Silverstone for the first time, the Kiwi out of the V8 Supercar Championship, up to 19 fastest. That's a bit more encouraging. So still a few more to take the flag. There's Franck Pereira in number 12. So he has done on his previous lap 2 personal bests, but missed out on an improved lap time by 26 thousandths of a second, which on a lap of over 3 miles ain't bad, is it really? So the flag has been taken by most, and Franck Pereira has taken the flag, so this lap's not going to be an improvement. It's not going to be timed. He's taken the checkered flag. This is his in lap. Even though he looks quick still, Franck Pereira isn't being timed on this lap. He's done. He's taken the flag. So at the end of the session, Audi's first and second. Good effort by Stefan Richelmy, putting himself up to the very top. And the drivers will make their way down the pit lane. They've got pre-qualifying to come at the end of the day. And with the chances there of, yet again, a very, very busy road and getting a clear lap in being difficult, it's going to be interesting to compare and contrast what we have now with what we will have then. So the fastest car in the session is the number 3 Audi. I'm interested that Franck Pereira is still driving as he has. I don't think he bothered to look up when he crossed the timing line, because he's not driving like a man who's going to head into the pit lane this time. But I promise you, he's taken the checkered flag, so this next lap that he's on is irrelevant, but he's still pounding on.
Yeah, the only reason he might do this is, although it's an in lap, he wants to give the team the best information, principally to do with tyre temperatures.
All right.
When he comes in to stop. So if he was to do a normal, let's say, winding down, slowing down lap, he would lose tyre temperature, and consequently there may be information the team wanted. They may have said, look, on this in lap, just keep at it, don't back off. That's the only reason I would assume. Or else he needs to go for a comfort break, maybe quite simply something like that.
Either are good points. Well, he did back off at Luffield right at the very end. So let's have a quick look at how we end up at the end of free practice then. So it is Audi's first and second from WRT. Audi 3 ahead of Audi 1. Then the TDS BMW for third. Then 66, the Pierre Caffer fourth from Barwell's Team Russia BMW. And then 888's BMW for sixth fastest. So that is how we look at the end of free practice. Pre-qualifying to come at the end of the day here. Quick look back at the highlights of the session then, which began, of course, an hour and a half ago with everybody pouring out onto the circuit. Early attention surrounding the Bentley, which was in the hands of Stephen Kane as he was trying to repeat last year's success and aim for back-to-back wins. But the Bentley struggling a little bit around here. Good effort being put in early on by the 333 Ferrari, the Siedler-Siegfried Salikov car, and a grandstand view of a spinning Mercedes ahead as the car rounded Luffield. Red flag shown early on to retrieve the Jaguar. That was able to get back into the session, but everybody headed down the pit road first of all, and then when the track was clear, the signal was given to go back out onto the circuit. Number 19, the Lamborghini that won on the road at Monza, was looking difficult here. So too the McLaren 650S, Kevin Est pounding on as he tried to work his way up to a competitive lap time. Also looking good early on for 9th, and ending the session 9th indeed as well, was the 32 Aston Martin, the car of Paul Wilson, Stuart Leonard and Michael Meadows. Shown session long as being driven by Stuart, but Michael Meadows, I'm sure, having done a good time in the car. Nissans were also looking competitive, and we had spinners coming through the loop, which affected a number of drivers as they were on the hunt for a quick lap time. A spin coming out of Club Corner was the Martin Jensen, Dennis Anderson Ferrari, and Club Corner, a part of the circuit where lots of people were using all of the track and then a bit more, constantly running wide as they drifted out of Club Corner. Joe Osborne was amongst them in the 888 BMW on his way to 6th fastest in the session. But at the end of it, it was all about Audi. Number 3 is the car thanks to the time of Stefan Richelmy, a 2 minutes 1.990 that tops the times. Join us for pre-qualifying later in the day.